Hey Scrappy people! Day 3 of my October daily prep for 2024 brings us 3 fun tags. So I wanted to play with some inking and some dies and stencils and things like that. I'm going to use my Monster Mash collection for Echo Park from last year because it's still an adorable collection and I wanted to play with some color. So we're getting a little Halloweeny today rather than fall like we have been doing, and I'm not going to make some foundation pages. I'm just going to make some tags to just kind of get creative. Not everything has to be a foundation page, I think, and we can do some prep beforehand with just some fun embellishments too. So I'm using some black ink and this stencil, which I have taped down with just regular Scotch tape to my glass mat, and I'm doing some ink blending with the black ink and making spider webs, of course. I'm going to hop around on all 3 of these tags back and forth just because that is how I function. That's how I work. I don't dedicate myself to one complete tag at a time because I often, think of things later that I can add to tags. So we've done the background for one, and now I'm going to do the background for my second one, which is going to be this sort of bubble. I drew it as like alien monster skin, but it's going to read as bubbles for this tag because I'm going to use a cauldron die cut. So I've kind of masked off some of the bubbles so that they're kind of floating around, and then I did the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to cut out the center of this tag, so I tore it a little bit with that Scotch tape, which wasn't really a big deal to me because I was going to cut out that part anyway, but don't use Scotch tape on paper. It's not really meant to be removable, but I'm lazy. So I am using some embossing powder. I used an embossing dauber, and I'm using embossing powder, and this is going to create a sort of resist for this green ink that I am using to ink up this tag. Now, it didn't do a fantastic job, and that's just mostly because I'm pretty sure that dauber was pretty dry, and I couldn't really tell when I was using the dauber, but if I could go back, I would just use my ink pad. Oh well. I was going to use the circle punch to cut that out, but I realized it would not be centered, so I used the circle punch to cut out a circle instead, which I will trace around with a pencil, and then just use my scissors the old-fashioned way to cut it out, because I'm going to make this one a shaker tag. So, of course it moved, but that's okay. So in order to get it cut out through the center, rather than, cutting from the edge, I just poked my scissors through the middle of the circle and worked my way to the outside edges, and then did the best I could to make my cuts straight. It's a little bit imperfect, but I can cover up the imperfection over here that I'm trying to fix right now with some embellishments that I'm going to use. Then I'm going to have some acetate on the back of this so that none of the sequins fall out. I'm going to use red line tape and just some transparency that I have to seal this up. Red line tape, of course, being the most sticky way to make sure that stays shut and stuck to the paper. So I'm just going to trim this up. I had a few ideas for this tag that kind of just didn't work, so you'll see here in a minute, but it comes out really cute in the end. And the last tag is going to be orange with my final stencil, which is the black bats and stars. So again, this nice and orange here with some black inking just to smudge it up a little bit because the orange was a little bit brighter than the orange in the collection. Going to tape this down again, making sure I don't tape to the paper, and then I'm going to use black ink to make my bats. And then over the black ink, I decide I want to use that holographic embossing powder again, which will make it a little less black, but it'll be sparkly. So I just cleaned off my stencil, then came back, and now I'm going to, instead of using the dauber, I'm just going to use my whole ink pad and just splotch it right down over the stencil. Then I'm going to repeat the process with the embossing powder, and I'm going to dump it all over, and you can see it stick to just the bats. And then I did not skip the drying portion of this one because it's really fun to watch. So I'm going to get out my heat gun, and then you'll watch all of these little white bats turn into sparkly blackish bats instead of white. Dun, da, da, da. There they go. So I could have used black embossing powder. I'm not sure if I have any. I did at one point, but I'm not sure if I still do. But my holographic was out and I wanted to see how it would look over black anyway. And I like the effect. I think it's pretty cool. Okay, so all three of the bases of these tags are done now. And I'm going to start using my dies from this line to create the embellishments for this page. So things I don't normally reach for are dies, stencils, and stamps. It's just less my thing than other things. So I really wanted to challenge myself to use all of these things that are so cute that I never end up using. So I'm going to use this cauldron die with the bubbles and the stars. I'm going to create a few different copies of the stars and the dots off of the remnants of the inside of the tag that I cut out so that they're all green and cute. Then I'm going to stamp this sentiment, which says it's all just a bunch of hocus pocus, which is of course perfect for a cauldron tag. And this is where I start going, okay, maybe I have different ideas. So I start fussy cutting this out and I get about halfway through and then I'm like, well, maybe I want it to be a circle that goes inside that shaker portion. So I did like not go in that direction, so I cut that out, but I'm just saying that it was a good idea, except you could not read the words once I stuck the sequins in. So if the sentiment had just been at like the top of the shaker, it would have made more sense. But since it took up the whole circle, you couldn't read it. So, oh well. Here I am with my sequins. I put in some silver stars, some green sequins, and then some black bats and black cats. And I decided in the end that I'd rather have all of these adorable sequins in the center than take them out, or take the majority of them out, so that you could read the sentiment. So the sentiment is going to be fussy cut still and go on the outside of the tag or the outside of the shaker rather than put it inside. Although I do really feel like if I could have made it work, the inside would have been a fun choice. But, you know, you work with what you got. I love this tag actually. It came out really adorable. I'm gonna add this cauldron and then the sentiment, but I'm gonna skip ahead to a different tag because I just keep hopping around and coming back and forth. So I'm gonna finish cutting out this sentiment, keeping a nice white line, a nice white border around the outside edges. And then I'm gonna put it up in the corner. And at this point, I felt like it didn't really feel done to me. Like it felt weird and off-centered. And then I remembered that I wanted to use the little die cut hat too after I pull out the next set of die cuts. And I'm like, oh, that's what it was missing. So I'm going to use my tweezers here to put down some of these little die cut stars and dots. And they just kind of sit over the top of the sequins. So you can see them when the sequins are at the bottom. And they don't move, of course, so you get some of that bubbly effect coming up off of the cauldron, even though it's still green on green in some places. Gotta trim some of this still. I didn't like the sharp corners. Okay, so I'm gonna put this aside for a second. And then when I get out the dies for the next tag, I'm like, oh yeah, there's the hat that I wanted to use, so let's use that. So I'm going to go ahead and jump forward too so that you don't have to watch me cutting out all the rest of these dies. And I also cut out a bunch of spiders and bats for my other two tags with the eyeballs and everything, which of course took a lifetime, all those tiny eyeballs, but look at how cute they are. Okay, so now we're going to put this hat up at the top, kind of nestled in with the sentiment. I contemplated putting it just down by the cauldron, but I thought it looked best right here. So that's where it's going to go. I'm still feeling like this isn't quite coming together the way that I wanted it to, but I'm going to put it aside for now, work on other tags, and come back to it. So now I'm going to use these adorable little spiders, and when I put them on the tag, you can see they totally disappear. So I'm going to pull out the stamp set with the spider web, and I'm going to stamp a bunch of spider webs that I will fussy cut out and sit the spiders on top of those webs rather than on top of the black tag. So I'm just gonna fussy cut all of the best stamps out. Doesn't have to be perfect. but I want there to be a nice white border around the outside edge, of course, so that it comes up and away from the black background. So now you can see the spiders when they go on top. And then I want to add a sentiment to the center here, and I think I'm going to add orange. So I'm going to cut out a white circle from just some scrap cardstock with my 2-inch circle punch. And then I'm going to ink blend some orange onto that piece of cardstock. And then I will stamp the sentiment over the top of that in black. Cute. So the sentiment says October 31, of course. Tested out that stamp a few times because these big solid stamps sometimes don't stamp very well. Good enough. Then I'm going to pop the sentiment up on foam tape as well as all of the little spiders too. Well, the webs. The spiders are going to be attached to the webs, and the webs are going to be popped up on foam tape just so we get some cute height out of this tag, and so that I can overlap the spiders or the spider web over the sentiment, and you know, they're supported. So I'm just going to put some right in the center and overlap. And I'll probably rearrange these spiders a couple of times until I'm happy with where the webs are sitting. This one was definitely the fastest one to come together. I had the best, most cohesive idea for this one going into it. Look how cute these little spiders are. So cute with their little googly eyes. All right, so I'm not loving the way that the webs are spaced, so I'm going to move things around a little bit. Luckily, the foam tape didn't stick too badly. Still not happy. Let's move it this way so that the spider is a little bit farther away from the other spider, and then we're going to move this one down. Perfect. So that one is done for the moment. I'm still not done with either of those, but we're getting closer. And then lastly, I'm going to work on the bat one, and for this one, I pull out the sticker sheet from the 12 by 12 kit because I didn't feel like there was any sentiment or dies that really fit with this card the way I wanted it to. So I'm going to use this frame, and I'm actually going to do the same thing, and I'm going to cut out the center of the frame for this tag. And I'm not going to make it a shaker pocket. I'm going to leave it empty because I'm either going to put a photo behind it or I can make it a shaker pocket later. But I do like the way it looks, or the concept of it, as a photo tag. So I'll probably end up using it as a photo tag, but I like the orange on orange. I like the way that it looked. Now I want to add the little bats, and we're going to pop these up on foam tape so that there's height again. And these are really, really tiny bats, so I'm going to stick this foam square on here, and then I'm going to have to trim it up so you can't see it. Kind of basically shaving it so that it like goes away from the outside edges. Cute. And I decided only to use 2 bats for this one. I am putting the other one aside just in case I want to add it later, and just because it's cute and I can add it to anything. And then I pull out the die cuts and a few different sentiments, and I decided to go with this Hey Boo because it fit the best, and I actually liked the contrast of the blue on the orange tag. I thought that that was pretty cool. So I'm going to just add some adhesive to the bottom edge of it so that it floats out over the top of the frame, but I need to make sure that you can read it, so I'm gonna fuss with it just a little bit here because I want it nestled right in with that bat, but I didn't want it to like cover up the bottom scallop of the frame. I don't know, I was just being really fussy. Just super fussy. There we go. All right. Okay, so this is where I'm like, okay, what do I do? What can I do to fix this one? It feels weird and lopsided with that white and black sentiment. And I was like, oh, these white and black spiders will bring some of that white and black down and across the tag and make it look more balanced. Oh, I love it. Perfect. We're going to put it up here so that both of the spiders kind of frame the cutout. Then I'm going to add in some sequins to this tag, some orange sequins to this tag, which I had in like a mix from Spiegel Mom Scraps. And then I'm going to add in some green sequins to the cauldron tag, just for a little bit of bling. I just kept adding to that one over and over and over again. Oh, I love what that added to this page. So cute, or page, tag, so cute. Lastly, the green, we're going to add here and there, even over the cauldron itself in the bubbles, and then I'm going to call it good. So that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you. If you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Tracy M. Reed. I'd love to see you over there as well, and I will see you next time. Thank you.